Why, Tangato Laricimo, the Tatanama Talaricimo. Nanjin page in the Jatan Duju, nearby Shala Tony long go to do Temas or what in Taringas Ruchina Maria and Kabil and Nabil and Nije, Nabil and La Chiang Chabatan, the Dagan Temas, Nije, Tomajiang Chabatani, Lena Jujian Dan, Shala, Todangile, good to Temas. 사지지나 오더래도 나를 쳐버지나 오더래도 베이지나 자도 두주 돈들을 지기들도 니바샬라 레 샬라 도던 데빌레 고주도 데마스 워튼 바이바 워트 비지 구성 거 되잖아
네 베양이 된 자단 던주 던던
네네
then Sheching Lung Kabiare, the Hua Kaba. The Major Sign Major.
Chigitl do Chigitl. Neba Shala, Toden, Todan Dembe, there's a good do Demba. What an
okay, Dora Demba, okay. Okay. Then the Le Sache Lagur.
What the
okay.
Yeah.
To Chena. So we are going to go directly, if you want to turn in the English book, to page 231. We're going to begin there. So if we look at the outline, so we're once again going to be going over Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So this is the root text that will be being explained today. So we're going right to the section on karma. So that's where we currently are. So underneath the category of the determination of the effects of actions, we find black actions and their results, white actions and their results, and then a presentation of other classifications of karma. And then under the black actions and their results section, we find there are three categories: the actual passive black actions, distinctions of weight, and then an exposition of effects. We've gone. We're currently dealing with the distinctions of weight section. So that's the section that we're in, and that is in English on page 231. And we're the heading on this, because we've gone through part of this distinctions of weight section already, is strength in terms of recipient.
Deba mugo juji drebo dunge ane nge song tu marba ta ne kawa ju drebo tele dawaji ane dundu song wo tu le de marba wo tu te gu de ma le dro ta deba mugo ju tela ane to de shala to de le good dude never the Jimar. Shingun Tauchewa, Shingun Tauchewa Tombaje, and Deba Mogo Chibutan, Chongutan Dean, what the Sukolo, Shingun Chichunshai Warriors, Shingun Tauchewa, then the Tanjugun Tauchewa. Tanjugun Tauchewa there, what the Shanju Semba Chimba Rajuna. And the Rajun Tachi in Bare. Then I was the Marba, then you couldn't touch her. Near Jul Mukale Urota, then you couldn't touch her. No one couldn't touch her, Sombaje. Some people couldn't touch her, Jibaroa, Tombote, and the Legua. She couldn't touch her. She couldn't touch her till that. Tansen all my legro, the knowledge of knowledge. She couldn't touch her till that, Tansen is so marba. And Saji Kunju, Chu Kunju, Ganu Kunju, as what the little Tembe, and Deva Sabayina, Deva Nasabayina, what the Deva Chishu is, Marba, Deva Chimres. Then Gandu and Gandul, then what the Deva Sabayina, Deva Chibus, and then Gandu Papi Ganeda, Mok Nans in Jerwa. What the Devasan Deva Chibus, then and the Shaju Sambal Devasabaina, Teleto Chares, what the song to you do, Shimgun Touchavate, or the Sajin, the Dak on the Larisham Son on the Roa, Son to what the Jajibata, Shaman Pentatagala, the Sajid Jinji, Shakalota, Ulmukale Leon.
Okay. So this section is called, so the major heading here is a brief discussion of the criteria for powerful actions. And it says the strength of actions is explained in terms of 4 aspects: recipients, support, objects, and attitude. So these are the 4 aspects that we explain it in terms of. So when we look at various actions, we see that we can divide them into virtuous and non-virtuous actions. So when we speak of non-virtue or misdeeds, we can speak of the 10 non-virtuous actions. Non-virtues lead to suffering. Non-virtues lead to the lower realms of cyclic existence. And their opposite is virtue. The 10 virtuous, the ethics which abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities. These virtuous deeds, or virtuous deeds, give rise to happiness, give rise to rebirth in the higher realms of cyclic existence. So these are these are the effects of the actions. Non-virtuous actions bring suffering. Virtuous actions bring happiness. So when we begin with this section on strength in terms of recipient, we find that the Shamar Pandita and Jamyan Sheba state that the outline follows just as it is in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment in this section. So it's broken down into these various categories. So strength in terms of recipient section is broken down first into the category that deals with the 3 jewels and parents and so forth, and then the next category that deals with the Sangha. So here we could be speaking of the Arya Sangha, so the superiors of the here, solitary realizer, or bodhisattva superiors, or Buddha superiors, or we can be speaking of just monks and nuns. So those also we fit categorically under the Sangha jewel. So first, we find the strength in terms of the recipients, such as gurus and the 3 jewels and parents, and then the next, the Buddha, 3 jewels being the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha jewel, and then the next category is dealing directly with those Sangha members, and again the Aryas and monks and nuns, and then and their strength in terms of them as bases. And then the last section deals with the most powerful basis in terms of strength as far as recipients go, and that is the bodhisattva. So this last section deals with the strength of the recipient, who is a bodhisattva. So that's the order that we'll be going in.
Sa domanga so shingun to chwa de yong re so ba song go na konju song sa tambale de ro ni ba shala to don de be leje go du de tembala jeles ta tombe jignan tambe de shingun to chwa mar ba shingun to chwa ne konju song dans an sa je konju chu konju de ne konju ta an lama ta rawa ta and the social Lama to the Lama Deba Chujun in Deba Chivare, Lama than Rawa. Tawate and what the Sul Debasana Jibares, and then Pamala Subas, and the Suzu Pama to Sul Deba Chujun Sabaina, Deba Chivungure, Sobate. The Dalane, Samba shoot trap matching, Pendu Chungu, Shejang, Sona Dan, Kanamato, Chishirosa, Sona the Kanamato Chishis, and the Gunju Song Dan, Lama and Rawa Dan, Pamala Suvatasule, and the Pemba Dan, no ba chujun jeba inaya ada deba chibu yungure gawa chibu yungure ta jusen karasana konchu son ta lama rawa to ne tasul phene chujun jeba ina deba chibu karje yungure deba chibu karje yungure jusen jeba ina ane yende de bishin beje yende de bishin beje 파마다 나와도 줄래 아니 편의 주중 제바 있는 디바시부터 거와시부 가르치는 용어서나 편두신 베스 근데 파마 수수 가르치시로 그래서 소소 파마래 디바사도 거와사 어디 주중 제바 있는 처음 용어 주센터에서 what is one these
so then we begin here. When we look at how the powerful actions are explained, we'll find that they are explained in 4 aspects. So it begins with recipient and then moves on to support, objects, and attitudes. So we begin with recipient. First, the recipient that we find in the text is the 3 jewels, the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. And then we find gurus, those who are like gurus, parents, and the like. So here, these are the first categories of recipient that we create powerful karma, recipients that we create powerful karma around. So if we engage in a small amount of virtue in relation to any among these examples, then it creates a large amount of happiness. If we engage in a small amount of negativity related to these recipients, then it produces a great amount of suffering. So we can see the increase because of the strength in terms of the recipient. So why is it that these bases are powerful? Why are these beings powerful recipients? So when we look at the Buddha jewel, are the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, we say that they are strong recipients because of the excellent qualities that they possess. And then when we look at one's parents and so forth, we find that it is because of the benefit that they show us, or the benefit, how they benefit us. The Lama dang Pama Chipa Peung.
Pama dang Lama dang Khensur Rinpoche Lobsang Tenzin.
The Lama
Pama dang, and then Pama la soba the so and Khensur Rinpoche.
Lama dang Pama Pendo Bishi.
Lama dang Khensur dang Lama dang rawa so te.
Yunten. Okay, tuche.
Pama la soba sa te
So when we go to the categories, I want to just sought clarification with the categories. So when we look at the category of recipients that are excellent qualities, we would find the 3 jewels, gurus, and those who are like gurus, and then those who have benefited, those recipients who are beneficial would be parents. So those are how we categorize those 2.
Hoje tata na wade Khensur dang Lama dang rawa tasul pene chujun jeba ina deba chibu yungure Pama la soba la pene chujun jena deba chibu yungure ane su songore na sanje gndo tema jeja la songore tema nyawa jaba tema jeja shanshu studio gno ne tema nyawa jaba je yada bonwa je zuju kamba je to nga on what the shanshu studio euro what the Tibetan Buddhism euro
okay
what the do euro do son do ça
less
Tibetan jabale juma tabote ça what the najin to mo je to the Tibetan do son chas checker do sanji da chu da gni le ne chongshi lang na chemu ju de ça sanji de chu da gni da what to the command juju ko ba ina what diba chibu yungres ane jote sanji na chuda gendu ji maji ba la ba da le chance anu wa da le chance riso tumbi sa phe na sanji da chul bhejabi ne chala de yaja ne da bje bheja na diba tan res gendu lu ko jabate ane yapı ne takı mares gündüzce kubane Soa Manu Bar Taba Jo Mede, Shinji Shirosa, Ganin Bujata, Ganin to Saatwa to Gani Bujaji, Papa Inade, and Suzuki Morgan Tarivaina, and Saatwa to Galo, and the Gani Sagur Tungure, what a man of Kunyabachi Jirota, Jo Mede, Shinji Shirosa, Ganil Bija Dibachigresa, Shinji Waimbe, Pandu Bishin, Casaburita, you know, dead Bishin, Shirosa. What about Jiju?
When we do actions that we benefit recipients, such as gurus, parents, or the three jewels, even a small amount of benefit creates a great amount of virtue or of merit. And likewise, if we harm any of these recipients, then a small amount of harm creates a large amount of non-virtue. This is because of the recipient, him or herself. It says, we're just going to read this. There is strength in actions directed towards the three jewels, gurus, those who are like gurus, parents, and the like. For though you direct no intense thoughts towards them and do only small harm or help, the ensuing misdeed and merit is great. Further, the mindfulness of the excellent teaching states. So here, this is a quote. So where do we find this information that states that a small amount of benefit to these recipients equals a great amount of virtue, and a small misdeed creates a great amount of non-virtue? The source for it is in the Kangjur, the pronouncements of Lord Buddha. Here, and this specifically is the mindfulness of the excellent teaching, and this is a sutra. And it says, even if you take something small from the Buddha's teaching or the community, the fault will be large. However, if you offer some similar substance that is greater than what you stole from them, you will clear away the karma of stealing from the Buddha and the teaching. However, there is no clearing away the karma of stealing from the community without experiencing the result because of the weightiness of the recipient. The kanga losun? The long kanga losun? Okay, the detsuku. The cheka, ngetsamba cheka lasun. So here, if we steal from the sangha, so for instance, when we say sangha, in this case, nominal sangha, monks and nuns, if we take, for instance, their food or their drinks, then this is a very large negativity, because these are sustenance that they need. So when we take something that they need to eat or to drink from them, this is taking away what sustains them. So this is a great amount of negativity.
다 근데 쉐도 네 근데 다 사통하더니 지로다 안에 파비 근에다 안에 먹는도 이제 말በት 그게 사통하도 램바이나 안에 데인데부터 녀와나멜전 그래 사녀제도 장녀제도 이제로
녀
녀와 쳔보 이제로 녀와 세제 녀와 쳔보 홍라스 Keti saa thunga tani mayi jala, gani jala jenda guba ina, u ina ne, ti bana ne bisata, namen nyakuyi nyawa ta, nyatsi nyawa ta ba jenda kare suwa isa marba, jiwa njoro, she song so sa, jamba nyajalo ote song kare.
If you have stolen something that is means for sustenance, so this is again what sustains monks and nuns, such as food and drinks of the community, you will fall to rebirth as a living being in a great hell. So when we look at the various divisions of hell, the hot hell, and so forth, this is what it's speaking of, one of the hot hells. If you have stolen something that is not the means for their sustenance, you will be reborn within that region, or a hell surrounding the unrelenting hell, such as the hell of great black darkness. So here, when we divide the various hell realms, we have the hot and cold, and then surrounding hell. So this is speaking of the hot hell realm, and then those surrounding hell realms, all as the second choice, if you will.
Oji shesonsos ta chebra to ganiji ne ganiji de damata ganu wote 파비그네다 안 먹어단 저이지로다 안 공부도 저 인외들 모두다 페이지다 베르세다 말베 어떻게니서 어떤 용이서래 저버도 그니지 제 담아 모두 간 저버 장시 안에 저버 장시 취지지 나사 취지치와도 그 배제 제바이나 네 제바이나 세제 녀와 전부 저와 당사 세제 녀와 전부 제는 그래서 사년 전에도 순지로다 잘라 연례부터 녀와는 신의 타와 있나요 연례부 타양 안에 매일 노발 제바이나 루금바 사자감보 안에 사자감보 된데 춤에서 어떤들 돈을 강라 매봐 이다 미롱아 된들 제네 안동에 봐도 매봐주고 그래서 이다 미롱아 미매봐 제대스 로마보 동해뇽아라 수비 예미치 예미히비돌 송소사 예미히비돌 송도사 근리지 차브라도 근리지 제 담아 모두 건제보 내부탄시 취지주는 취지스다 먹어봐버게 말be 먹어봐버게 되게 어떻게 근일 표제 잘라 표제 집이나
Okay.
안에 대인들부터 나면 녀월지는 그래
Okay. So
잘래 녀월 타네 네 만들 집이나요 맞다 네 집이나 사자 감보 안 돈도 강라 매봐 레이다 미롱아 어떤들 지는 그래서
In particular, if those who do not care about their ethical discipline were to use material of the community, merely a leaf, flower, or a piece of fruit, they would be reborn as a living being in a great hell. After a long time, they would be free of this hell. However, they would be reborn in a dry and barren wilderness as animals with no hands or legs, or as blind, hungry ghosts without hands or legs. They would then experience suffering for many years. The Sun Essence Sutra mentions great dangers such as these. So here, if we use, it is not proper, for instance, for someone who has lost his or her ethical discipline. So for instance, someone, monk or nun who has disrobed. So not caring about ethical discipline, an example of someone would be a disrobed monk or nun. So if they were to use anything of the Sangha, so here Sangha, we can say the Arya Sangha, but then we could also say the nominal Sangha, which is just the groupings of monks or nuns. So if someone who has given back their ethical vows or disrobed, were to use, for instance, a peach or a pear. So these are examples of something, fruit, of the community of the Sangha, and it would be a great amount of non-virtues. So here, this is showing the great negativity of using these things. And then also it says, however, so after a long time they'd be free of this hell. So the result is a hell realm rebirth of using, of somebody such as a disrobed monk or nun using the Sangha's things. The result would be hell realm rebirth. And then the next result, they would be reborn in a dry place where there aren't a lot of things that can be used, such as a hungry ghost realm or an animal realm.
gulung la ngba sa jin ga nyu da gulung la ngwa be phu sha be jala yoro da ngba gulung matu la so ba zang yas ane chujin che sa gen rang ge be je ane chujin mag ba bro gen de gulung be je ane chimbal de ba ina chimbal de wa da ane chimbe long shu de mron wa song jin kana ma to shin do je des wa de Deba Chabri Son Yuares, do Tenilis, Nimeji do Tenijiro. What about the Tijujan, Kali Udluna?
Moreover, the Buddha said, So the Sun Essence Sutra mentions great dangers such as these. Moreover, the Buddha said that you cannot even use something such as a flower dedicated to the community or to a monk. Further, you may not give it to a householder, and for a householder to use it is unsuitable. Also, the misdeed is very great. So it is a great misdeed if someone who is a householder were to use, for instance, even a flower that was dedicated or given to community, to the Sangha, or to, here it says, a monk, or an ordained person. Just as a note, it's separated because there usually has to be 4 monks for it to be community. So a monk, that's why it's separated, because a monk wouldn't be, or a nun wouldn't be community even nominally. So just as a translator's note. So to community or a monk. So it's not appropriate for one who is a householder to use any items whatsoever. Dixon.
Yes, man. What the Tatana, what the Gnu, Glon Longosha, Jalade, and the Treatise talking to the Beijing Mare, Treatise talking to the Chimbal Deva in Nevashavis, and the Yemi do the Nile Sondus, and the Kanda Sondusana, do the Nile Pomojan Sondu, Devachavi, but put the never tag you saw, put the never tag you ranking a lot to Lai. Gnu Tala Masimba, Chimanala, Jimejas, Tapad Nobagus, combat Lavas to Outseres, Gnu Guru Mashabijala, the Chusin Chivarani Bujuji, and Chimbal Jimba, you know what the Tibetan Nehat Lecheres, Chisondola, the Chiju.
The Tambo the Boog, the Andrew Surinam, the Der. Not so loud.
What is a knife?
Oh, okay. That
what the Chernobyl Lapa, the combat in the Outseres, Chuti Chesabat, Glun Tang, and Nilo Mashabijala, Rank Bujuji, and Chimbal Devaina, Devashira Chiburi, Negachibures, Tambo Terra, Techijuna, Tana Ulumpomo.
Okay. Chi. Okay.
Yeah.
Do not. Okay, so now we're going to find many examples that are going to be given of this. So the Sun Essence Sutra states, so this is a sutra where we're going to find these examples. Do not give householders what has been dedicated to the spiritual communities. It would be better to cut off your own limbs with sharp razors. Here, having one's limbs cut off with sharp razors would be so-so compared to a householder receiving something that has been dedicated to the spiritual communities. So in terms of negativity, so having one's limbs cut off in terms of negativity is so-so, is a small level compared to giving a dedicated item to an inappropriate recipient.
Majimba Tabi Chaji, Trunsuba, Lai, Gunitale, Kain Tene, Gunu Jisa, and Trunsuba Lai, Gunitale, Kantene, Gunu Jele, Lonshu Meja, Jemejasa. That Tabuya Mansa Mabu says Outseres.
That's so.
And Gedi the Guru Mashabate, Suchi Rang Bejuji, and Chimal Deva in Otenia Catalichigres, what the Giredua. That one Makali Jujan and the Sheda Kalika Udlujana, that would the Niba de Petijagando, Hambutan and Dayume, Payat and the Rija Rona, Hambutan and Dayume. Lamba Jete, Suba Lais, Shabbatanda, Lana, Seba in Outzere, and Gelutan, Grunla, Mashabijalate, and the Chutin Chesagarani, Bejo, Chimal Debaina, Devashira Chagras, Chimbe, Geluji, Lonshiba Majaus, and Sejin Shebatan, and Sejin Yuma Shebatan, Sejin Yuma Shebatan. Session Tinto, Tiba Lai, Sejen Yunga Shebatan, Seshin de Sis, Tanghama in the Masaya, Shindomatazun, Matakan Jan, Seguirwada. Sejen Yunga Satama Pianum than the Marbe, Piatan, and the Seshin Kan Jan, Sayan, or the outer is Diba. And then Ganilla, the Luda Glula Hajabate, Chuji Rank Pejuji, Chival Deba in Diva Lecture to check the Das. Session in the Jabal Deba Lai, Chimbar Jube, Gandunji, Longeban Majaus, Chiremude, Ta Woodle Yampajidua, Madata Kawaii, Nehatan Juba Lais, Ta Mamba de Kamano Deba in Auzeres. And Chimba de what and Tabagan Shagan Tendin Digmaris, Divachevares, what the Pajit, what about the Redwa?
Okay.
Shes was
Lesser.
Kali Jujan, Kali Kavajiram.
Those outside of the community should not use things from within it. So those who are not Sangha members should not use things that are for Sangha members. It would be better to eat a lump of iron like a blazing tongue of fire. So it'd be better to eat a molten iron that's red than to use items of the Sangha's items. Those who are householders are not to use things of the community. It would be better to take up and eat a fire akin to the size of Mount Meru. So we see Mount Meru is this humongous mountain. So if we were to eat fire that is the same size as Mount Meru, this would be so-so in terms of negativity compared to using things of the community. And then it says, those who are householders should not use the community's things. It would be better to be disemboweled and hoisted up on a stake. So the negativity of being disemboweled and hoisted on a stake is so-so compared to the negativity of using a householder using the community's things, the Sangha's things. And then finally, householders should not spend a night in a dwelling of the community. It would be better to enter a house of burning embers. So Rinpoche said, be better to just stay in a house that was on fire than to stay one night in a dwelling of the Sangha. So this is these are all of the examples that are given in this sutra to show the negativity of misappropriation of the thing.
Tepatoa Gandu Gurula Kunshabi, Chala de Peje Chevaina, Never Chevaso, Niba to the Imbare, Tepato Jeta Sumba Chansen, Saji Sumba Otenile Imbare.
So when we look in terms of the Jayan Sheva's outline, we find that the first category is completed, and now we of the recipients, where we went through the 3 jewels and so forth, Guru's parents. And the second category has been completed, the Sangha, or those aspiring to virtue, and now we're on the third category, which is the Bodhisattva.
Hoje tá somba chance de ganhar de Pemba não nova chuchun jeba ina diba hallevi chibres odeno tateno lewi mar ganhar de não né jang shangju sembi ganza né gemegi shin do dao chetes shangju sembal de né pene chuchun shin gawasa ba ina da pene chuchun diba sa ba ina ane diba shin do dao chibre ne gawaji ne gawashin do dao chibres shin do dao chete.
The Shansen Papa Yen? Yengu?
Shansen Kanga Yinjire.
Okay. Kanga.
And Debito Jibi Shajin Doles. Debito Jibi Shajin Dole, what the Shanju Sambal, what the Penetus Jebina, get a Mugto Chibarima, Shajin Doles on those, Shajin Doles, Gaji trainers, and then Gaji Shanju Sambal trainer, Shuju Sentient what a Kaji Magaji trainer, Shuju Sentient Jora Mena to Juba use, Sentient Jonhan Kajavina, Debachura, and then Debachore, and then Tele Debachua, Shangchu Sembal Pene Jebaina, Deba Telecheres, Sijin Tanji Tun Kabi Dibale, Shangchu Sembal Pene Jebat Shida Cheres. Shansen La Judge Shootin Dune Maruba de Mataus, what about Chijujan Mara?
Within the community, so within the Sangha, persons who are bodhisattvas are extremely powerful recipients in terms of activities that are either virtuous and non-virtuous. So this refers, that's the question I asked, to all bodhisattvas. Every kind of bodhisattva. I asked Rinpoche if it was superiors, referring to superiors because of this community word that's before, and Rinpoche said that it's all bodhisattvas are extremely powerful recipients in terms of activities that are virtuous or non-virtuous. The seal of engaging in developing the power of faith sutra says that it is an immeasurably greater sin for someone to become angry and turn his or her back on a bodhisattva saying, I will not look upon this evil person, than for someone to become angry and put all living beings in the 10 directions into a gloomy prison. So here it's showing that doing some sort of negativity in relation to the community member that is the bodhisattva is the greatest negativity that one can do. It shows the comparison to putting all sentient beings in all directions into prison, and compares that to engaging in some sort of negativity in relation to the bodhisattva, and it shows that the negativity, the immeasurably greater negativity to do negative things in relation to the bodhisattva than to put all sentient beings in prison.
Ta senjen tanji tun ka sha deba chibure tewe shangchu sembal tun judge shuba ina deba chibures deba kale chibure shesana deba chi tama ba jeba nos deba tama ba chega deba chibures deba jije tan zamulengi senjen tanji doba tanji chuba yu zamulengi senjen tanji jala ga chuba ina deba chiburo deba chibure tewe ne shansen kaya rongwa jila pena shansen kaya rongwa jila doja resi laba ina wadi diba dili chigres mata tangas wadi dati dhaba mudwe ta chöten kangi longi shema jen shiba tangas ta chöten kangi longi shema kangi chu kanga wul shema ka tangta nya bi chöten kanga meba zu man si na deba chebro deba tele an deba chembi teba chembola mebi shansen la nesen tang kundu je jins teba chembola mebi teba chembola gabu shanchu semba so an teba chembola gabro shanchu semba teba chembola meba yuare teba chembola gabore teba chembola mebi shanchu semba le an kundu je ba ina je jin menyeba mana chizu namda lava ina an hata wa deba tameba chöten kangi shema tanda nebi chöten shi na deba chibro tele ane shangchu semba wate shangchu teba chembala mebi shangchu sembala tene chizu mahala so wate cheba ina deba tele chigres tar hata somba dans what nebata mangebala jubi shaji doles what ndo telson yomare shuju sejeji meshu ala wad luhaji leon ala wad ala what jiju no nganya wad no jaga on ndo jawa shuju sejen taji meshu mala shambi senje mil haje bata shuju senje taji mid meba zube ina ane shambi senje mid ya ju ya zube ina goch marba haje bata seje hamana seje taji zonhon ka ba deba chibro zonhon to ba ina goch bu marba zona ne tönde 네 코주랑 참비 대화랑고 봐 위에서 네 세제 단지 중앙 가서부터 마 되네 네 콜주 네 자비 대화랑고 봐다 안에 가서 그래 수주 세제 단지지에서 me bazo bate yacha me shambi se sa jibate goachibres sambi dwala goba na goachib marbe goachibro da goachibre tele goachibo kariyosna rimbatar teba chembula me bi chansen la tebis teba chembula me bi chansen la tebe tawadan tebe tawa tang yu dan due jin ti ha ba jue na so na chi tu zhang ma ba jie ba song ba dang ta wa de ge wan de le me de ane se je ta ji ge me ba zo ba de shang bi sen ji me de sa jie ba yin de ge wa chou ro se je ta ji zhong huang de ga ba de zhong huang de ma due ne sai chang bi ka sa ge ku lu ju ja bi jaban da de 제시는 거바이나 거와시 말베 틀레 거완데 쳐그레스 거바이웨 림바타르 테바 쳔볼라 멤비 샹센라 테비스 테바 쳔볼라 멤바 요케게 근데 샹수사바들 가버지 테바제네 따와당 따유스 안데 테바 쳔보들 샹주사바들 테바제네 안들 따와 안에 따유 단되지 티 하바주바 샤주 삼바 세다가 야부레스 하바주바 이나 하바주나 소나치 담에바 제바 송바 단스 소나치부 소나 텔레치와 와드 제바 송도스 송바 단 와드바 지주 말해 야
Okay, please. Within the let's see where I left off. So I'm just going to read from it. Within the community, persons who are bodhisattvas are extremely powerful recipients. In terms of activities, they are either not virtuous, or in terms of activities that are either virtuous or non-virtuous. The seal of engaging in developing the power of faith sutra says that it is an immeasurably greater sin for someone to become angry and turn his or her back on a bodhisattva, saying, "I will not look upon this evil person," than for someone to become angry and put all living beings in the 10 directions into a gloomy prison. Further, it states that if someone were to despise any bodhisattva, it would be a sin immeasurably greater than that of someone stealing all the belongings of all living beings in Jambudvipa. Again, it says that if someone were to have malice or anger for a bodhisattva who delights in the Mahayana and speak disagreeably to such a bodhisattva, it would be a sin immeasurably greater than that of someone who demolishes or burns as many stupas as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. So here, it's showing the negativity of speaking harshly or becoming angry at a bodhisattva. And the level of negativity that it creates, being the greatest level of negativity. Further, the seal of engaging in certain and uncertain destinies. Sutra speaks of someone who looks with faith upon a bodhisattva. So here, now we went from the negativity, now we move on to the virtue. So the virtuous actions. So it says, further, the seal of engaging in certain and uncertain destinies. Sutra speaks of someone who looks with faith upon a bodhisattva, who delights in the Mahayana, and who, wanting to look with clear faith upon such a bodhisattva, speaks praises of him or her. This person would accumulate merit that is immeasurably greater than that of someone who lovingly gives eyes to all living beings of the 10 directions after they have lost their own eyes, and frees such living beings from incarceration, establishing them in the bliss of a universal monarch or Brahma. So here we've gone over the negativities and showing how the bodhisattva is a very powerful recipient, and any negative action done in relation to the bodhisattva is extremely powerful powerful. So any negative action that we do becomes much greater. Now we move to the section that shows how positive actions that we do become increased greatly when we do them in relation to the Bodhisattva because of the strength of the recipient. So here it's speaking of someone who has a faith of conviction, looks upon faith with the Bodhisattva, at the Bodhisattva with faith, or upon a Bodhisattva with faith, and delights in the Mahayana and so forth, praises him or her. So these are examples of how greatly positive, how positive it is when we do things in relation to the Bodhisattva. And then the example of someone giving giving eyes to all living beings in the 10 directions who have lost their eyes, and showing how that's similar. That is even less than the value of doing something positive in relation to the Bodhisattva. Dixon.
Tunula Sanchan Ji Jimbi Goala Pache Jena, Dibachi Trama Bajeva Sombe, Nendela Shintuza Shahusa, and then Zamalim is Kasure Zamaling Sejataji Su, Zamaling Sejataji Jala Trubaina, Dibachevro, Tele Shanju Sabajige, and Chinamijilla. What they use matters Kajabina, Dibatelichigres, what this one do?
Again, the sutra on the magic of final peace speaks of someone who does as little as obstruct a bodhisattva's virtuous action of giving a single closed handful of food to an animal. Such a person commits a sin immeasurably greater than someone who kills all the living beings in Jambuiba or steals all of their belongings. Therefore, take this subject very seriously. So, even if somebody keeps a bodhisattva from doing something like giving bread to a dog, for instance, or giving some sort of food to an animal, if someone does something as small as that, then it says that this sin is immeasurably greater than someone who kills all the living beings in the southern continent. So it's showing how, or steals all their belongings. So it's just showing how greatly negative it is to do anything bad in relation to a bodhisattva. And here this is showing that even something as small as keeping them or obstructing them from giving some food to an animal would be as bad as killing all the living beings and taking all of their belongings. So we see the power of the recipient in this case. Less so. Now, in looking at going back to the original categories, when we find this first category, the first category of recipient, we've gone through all three divisions. So we find the first division of recipients such as the three jewels, our gurus, our teachers, and so forth. And then the next category of recipient, which is the spiritual community or the Sangha, those aspiring to virtue. And then the third category, which is the bodhisattva within the community. So the Sangha member that is a bodhisattva. So these three categories these three divisions complete the section on strength in terms of recipient. So we've that completes the strength in terms of recipient. Now we go to strength in terms of support. Okay, so we'll take a short break and we'll be back.
kebi debat yangare dibi lombik debat jibres tambaje anne dondeng debat an chibare domba mebat chongres dondenje an chucheje debat chibres anne sombaje jebat demarbe an debat chishud karasına chubungale dan debat magoju so what the jeyung je
Sumba, Yancher?
Tenju good kebat lambi debas tambro. Kebi debat yang lambi debat chures tambaje niba donde marbe. Doba da dena niba chibu ngoro. Doba da maden te chuan yire. Tene chuji ne magba bro kenga so to so.
Ale Suta.
Chuji wat kangalja yiro debat.
Then Nipadang Sumba Chapagare.
Chuji now the song of the Chabayo, the Galileo.
Okay.
That Jibat what the Diban Chishu and not Chibungale and Diba Magoju, what the that and Jerutal, Laricur, College, Origin Euro.
So now we're going to the section on strength in terms of support. So here we're going to find 4 categories that we'll go over. The first category is the strength of a vow for someone who is knowledgeable or versus someone who is not knowledgeable. So the strength in terms of the support of being a scholar, knowledgeable. This word is scholar or not scholar. So this is the first category. The second category is in relation to one's vow. So if one holds a vow versus not holding a vow. So the vows supporting it, the strength in terms of the support of a vow. And then the next category deals with the ordained vow being broken. So giving back the ordained, not observing or giving back one's vow of discipline, such as a monk or nun vow. And then the last category is the worst kind, or the most heinous kind. So then we go over the most negative, the greatest negativity being the negativity of a chubungile, of abandoning the Dharma.
What that Tambo, what the killing Diba Tambo Hegandua. Tejugun Tachuan, Taji Gombu Chuya, Chu Din to Shinla, the Nin to Sheba, Cheyan Tinto, Shua Jinto, Makeba, Kebishi, Debayana, Joatan Asuntes, T. Jusen and the Chenrezig, Yangal, the Chebu Zero.
That's so.
The more James Simbo, Ganalan Jawa, Simon Ganalan Jawa. Yung menu batan rawa, ane nyeba chung le jang, yung menu shin, jwesen mebe, gwache menu las, chun chabe, nalumbu tuzuk chun chabe ngaji, gwata yue jang, dibe, ane nga gwa, chun chaba yin song sang, diba samba yin song sang, nga gwa yue ba kangalo chun le chene mwa, penwa shebe na, tata naba meba nyuyu, Juan Jute and Niwa Shinto, Joan Jurosa. Or the what the Tibetan Lambo, that Chunyong or another Jan Sigua, Chunyong, some of Luja and Tunkawa, which are example. Kawa Jinto, Jenjeton, the Chichapa, Jima Baby, Jin Tate, Dungan and Raos. What about the Rendua? What about that? Kibi Dibati Hare, Lumbi Dibat Chivares, Maribel. Then the Judge Combo, Judge Chunuba in the Lasamaduro. What the Lumbi Dibat Nabares, Lasama, Nasul Jalasoma. And the Kibi Dibat Nanga Shingi, Drusina, Chibachara, Chunuba in a Olumado Marco, Tuldingro. Kibi Dibat Nabares, Yangares. What the Pajadins are?
That's so.
Charge Gombo Chun, did the Shin last, the need her to Sheba, Shebi Chayans, 다 신고 조진도 줘봐 있는 조진 구초 넣는 거 말어. 그 케비디바 나머레스. 참 쇼바진도 막해바다 케비시비 디바 저와다 영화 송대사. 어 송대 어디 너도 비지니 뭐가버 세라도 어디 갈래로잖아. 야.
The Kanga, the Lung Kanga?
강가
The
페이지 이쪽도 루잖아. 고조 건드렸대.
Okay.
세부도
Okay, so so strength in terms of support. Although even a small lump of iron sinks to the bottom of a body of water, the same substance made into a vessel, even a large one, floats on top. Likewise, the Buddha said, sins committed by those who are not knowledgeable and those who are knowledgeable are heavy and light as well. The great final Nirvana Sutra states the reason for this. So negativities, non-virtues created by scholars are less than non-virtues that are created by non-scholars. And then the reasoning for this will be presented. So it says, just as a fly that is stuck to nasal mucus cannot extricate itself, so the ignorant cannot extricate themselves from even a small shortcomings. Further, they cannot do virtuous actions because they are without regret. Even though they have previous virtuous actions, they defile them with sins because they hide their faults. The causes of experiencing a fruition of a non-virtue in the present lifetime are therefore transformed into causes of great suffering and become causes for experiencing a very severe hell. This is similar to the way in which if a handful of salt is put in a little water, the water becomes hard to drink, or to the way in which a person who borrows a gold coin from another but cannot repay it falls deeply into debt and suffers. Further, in 5 ways, even light causes of fruitions in the present will ripen in a hell. Being ignorant, having small roots of virtue, having weighty sins, not having been regretful and performed a purification, and not initially cultivating virtue. These 2 of these paragraphs were explained. So someone who is a scholar knows how to apply the various practices and opponents to the negativities that they engage in and therefore purify them. Someone who is not a scholar does not know how to do so, does not know they are engaging in negativities, and when they even do something virtuous, it gets covered up by their negativity very quickly. So we see this point being made here that someone who is not knowledgeable or doesn't know, isn't scholarly, their sins are heavier because they don't have the support of knowledge or the support of wisdom to be able to help free themselves from their negativity. So this is the point that's made here. So that when we look at the first example of the small piece of iron floating to the bottom very easily, this is compared to someone who isn't very knowledgeable, someone who's not a scholar. But someone who's a scholar is compared to taking that same piece of iron that floats right to the bottom, or a piece of wood that floats right to the bottom, and making it a larger vessel, and then it actually floats and doesn't sink to the bottom. And that's an example that we compare to the scholar, or the person who is knowledgeable.
ane do son deli los lesen son ane do sana peje lo du ken jimenro jagal ko ya do je ko du ban jimenro
Lay Jumba, 7th chapter. Okay.
And 3 chapter do son la do son ane deli los lo tantra ka son yo son den kan ju no yo dro tantra what 도선 나올 때에 ane shira jachabeina anan khag shila jobu yungures khag bless tantra bless jobu yungures ane keba me bon obutuba yibeina ya hal tebat shechebe yobeina khag shila jobu yungures nyun ta jobu yungures jobu yungures obutuya hal tebat yobeina and how is your Jubu?
Wang Du.
Kebaro.
Okay. Wisdom. the one
Shida Keba in
Dan
and
Teba.
Hage and Cheji Neju, the Semek Neju, and Chirin the Durin,
Okay.
Chuguru, the Tumunguru, Tserinwa, Nemepa, Longshu Chot Sumarbe. And then what the Tat Chuguru, Sanji Gobonda, Teaton got the Paranga, the Parasang, Long to Sinjirwa. What the Suma Julian, Shida Keba in a Jubungores. Keba mena ombu tubi ina ya ane han teba tembu yona shelo nyogres ta nyobu yongres ane keba ji imbala toba mo sa de tele han ngoru tringres tosun no son tosun
ale dopa doson the Benjamin
tosun
doson.
ko se me tantra ya me ta tantra
So in the Yamantaka, the Leu Dumba Sumba Garishine, the
lo dimba somba tele lo ka son yo son tosun tananga lo da tosun lo son 차든 송유에 괜찮은 노이래. 어떤 놀로 어때 엄부신 노베이나 하기실로 조금 오래스. 엄부면 노베면나야 할 때와 때문에나 실로 조금 오래스. 근데 나 엄부는 아우드 실은 아우드 도범 뭐 사는 게는 한국으로 들은 거스. 조금 오마르스.
Okay. So we find in the Yamantaka Tantra, is it in when the name of the text is the 3 times?
3 chapters.
And then the chapter 7, chapter 3.
Yeah, chapter 3 and 7. And today I'm going to be talking about the chapter 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this Yamantaka Tantra, we find points that are made about the scholars or those who are not scholars or who don't have sharp faculties and so forth. So it says that someone who is a scholar who has sharp faculties and has a great amount of faith will receive blessings very quickly in the Tantrayana. Someone who is not very knowledgeable but has a large amount of faith is very, very close to also being able to receive blessings in the Tantrayana. But someone who is not a scholar or somebody who is a scholar but has a lot of doubts and a lot of conceptuality around it, they're very far away from the result. So we see these points that are made that in relation to in the Tantrayana that are a little bit different. That we find that sometimes if there is a lot of doubt because of this knowledge that comes up and a lot of over-conceptualization, then this actually distracts one and makes it much further away from one's goal than someone who has faith if he or she is a scholar or not.
어떤 데서 가둘 케바 디바 게비 디바 디야마레 르비 디바 지와레 송도와 오네 야메다가 탄다
송
도송 레와데 어버시도 노베이난 하게 실어 주고 그래스 어버 노베메나야 어버 뒤베이난 하 데바 데메이나 실어 주고 그래스 아네 어버 때 예데 도바 모사데 등 한국으로 링거스.
So we find in this 3rd section of the Yamantaka Tantra where these 3 points are made. First, the point that if one is a practitioner of sharp faculties, then and has clear faith, then one will have very quickly succeed in the Tantrayana. If one has dull faculties and has great faith or clear faith, then one will quickly succeed in the Tantrayana. So will quickly become enlightened. But if one is a scholar or has sharp faculties or doesn't have sharp faculties and has over-conceptuality or doubts that distract one, distracting doubts, then one is very far away from one's goal of enlightenment. So we're stating this because in this particular section, it states that the knowledgeable, that the one who is not a scholar is compared to this small lump of iron of more negativity. The supporting, the one who is not supported by knowledge, being more non-virtuous than one who is supported by knowledge. So, by an action. So we're talking about an action done by one who has knowledge and an action done by one who does not have knowledge. So I'm sorry if the words are jumbled, but I think everybody, I think it makes sense. So Rinpoche was comparing then the Tantrayana to this statement, and we find that there's slightly differences in how the knowledgeable could actually be distracting in the Tantrayana context.
다 지나는 케바던 럼비디바 차제 다 니바든데 안에 돈내지도 돈내지 안에 디바셔존세도 어떤 내용도와 야나방에 어떤 메니바들에 도마도 네비디바데 쳐버려 도마메나 디바도 총거래서 돼 들려들어 야나방에 다다지 나바메바이 야와 나바메바이 야 Nyawa Peba, Jutesa. Yanabangan, Jusenabanga, Nai Kasure.
Oh, okay.
What the lady Marbe?
Okay.
No. Nabange, Tataji, Naba Peba, Yan, and Jusenga Sansona Tata, Naba Peba, Nediba Chujun in the Chibuchagres, Naba Peba, Yan, Nyawa Peba, Jutesa, Nyawa Chiba Sigres. Knowledge of Jude. The more gentles, Nagana Tawiro, not the Tamu change, the more negative Chibi Jerota, and then Gaza Chunwa dance, Gawashida Mabaina, and Divas and the Chibi Jero. Then the Dibala, Dibi Lechawata, Diba Chibiova, Chiwata, Jutan, Majibata, Dibal Joba Majiba. ane joba majiba ta thoma gawa machiba ane thoma gawa machiba nga sansona diba do de chebres she sombe sa she sombe hamala ta jerme je hotel de he jagwa jerme je hamala joba ta shamala domba ta ne diba masanshi ti nyebu gawa dewa shi kebala Yawa Sonjis, Tada Majibi, Chesuji Gune, Shejin to Jubi, Kebalumbalane, Jawa Inos, Taki Josia to what this one of my Bajan Maji, Diba Kamal, Dibasa or Dimasunya Juba, Shijing and Dibasa Manabi, Jusen, and Diba Masashins, and the Gawashi. Masashi, Tinebushi, Debug never going to get the Kebalatan, Debug house, Sumba Inji, Tada Majiba, Chisu Jugune, Shijin to Jubi, Kebalumbalan, Jawa Inos. Chisu Jugune, Tatsuji and Kayamati, Komakon Kayamas, what and Jeding and Debug Jugus of Res. The Tami Pontis at the Tanda. Kelung di bakatu di sare te yaja ko sare te ju gun to cho de la kheba tan lembi di bas tam che ta ni ba de me chi pong den ma ren do wa te ya ta ma le kheba tan lembi di ba le yaja ko do wa de nga ne de na ba nge di ba de me ba ya ni wa je wa ju de te mo je da nga ma re ba and the Sheson base, that Jimmy Dibal Jobata, Shichi Jimmy Donsenche, Diba Masawa, and the Nebu Meba there, nobly what the Diba Joris. But the Gawashi Tatabi and the Dibal Jobachi, Shichi Jimmy Donsenche, Diba Masashi, the Nebu Gumbi Kebala, and Diba the young race. Temu can tell Joris. Sonji, Tada Majibi, Chesuji Gune, Shijin to Jubi, Kebalumbalan, Johinos. What about the Kebat and Lamidi, but the other Jagudua? Nibat and Marimichi Bon than Marisha.
So further, in 5 ways, even light causes of fruition in the present will ripen into hell. So here's 5 ways that a very small amount of non-virtue ripens into a very great amount. It says, in the present will ripen into a hell, being ignorant, having small roots of virtue, having weighty sins, not having been regretful and performed a purification, and not initially cultivating virtue. So then these are these 5 things that make something very small very great. So being ignorant, the root virtues, having very small root virtues, the weight of our misdeeds are heavy. We don't have regret and perform purification, and not initially cultivating virtue. Therefore, the Buddha said that non-virtues are light for the knowledgeable who regret their former non-virtuous actions, restrain themselves from future non-virtuous actions, do not conceal their sins, and do virtuous actions as remedies for those non-virtuous actions. However, non-virtues are weighty for those who make a pretense of being knowledgeable and do not do these actions but belittle them and engage consciously in non-virtuous action. So here it's saying that even if someone makes a pretense of being a scholar, but belittle these things or say that these things aren't accurate, then that person too has a weighty amount of non-virtue. So even if someone has this knowledge, if they're saying that these things aren't true or actions don't produce these results, then that is a weighty non-virtue, even if they have that knowledge. So here we find Rinpoche just listed them twice, so I'm going to do it again. It said that non-virtues are light for knowledgeable who regret their former non-virtuous actions. So those who have regret for what they've done, those who keep themselves from doing it in the future, those who don't hide their faults, and those who do various remedies or opponents that help to purify those non-virtuous actions. So here these remedies are meant for purification purposes. So here, and it says, however, non-virtues are weighty for those who make a pretense of being knowledgeable and do not do these actions, but belittle them and engage consciously in non-virtuous action.
Kojuji Geshe Lharampa re jang mami jasu tang la hibu ra tang mame sanji ji chweden la chweba les ane tongsu ji sinja de tongsu na sau satin salamar sayu sai kan sai to sa to le be sinja tang ji ane tongsu ji sinja tang ji tijen la shude 네 티진 티면이 티진을 주도네 상주 생각도 차는 말ပဲ티진을 주대 코주지 제시던데 막 티진을 주대 안에 동서 세계 걸로 콜주의자고 콜주의제 제비 제시던데 막 페리치 말ပဲ제시던데 막 제제 장 마마 안에 마마 잡수다무지 안에 동부도 리 잡으러는 전부 바네 상직이 최대한 줘봐이나 소나 집으로 소나 집으시다로 와 대외 아니 샹생 진내 심해버려도 샹생 침바던 라중 샹생 침바던 라중게 전부 비바이나 그와 줄력이 치인 말이다 아니 샹생 진내 소 로도 샹생 로도 좀 마음에 아니 마음이 니보 로마지 그바 최대지 동도 당가주 주문하듯이 와대 추중지 뭐바네 샹생 로도 중앙되게 아니 최대한 부바데 시작 소나 치그래
알레 랍 돈바요 오케이
때려도 가서 때지 마드지 때려지자 샹생 Shansen Chine Shua, Shunwe, Mami, Dromaji, Dromasan as Oyo Mar Oyo. Drogi, Nozu Shasidra, Oyo Jakubi, and then as Chumbutan Mobile, Chedeji, Tronto, Zimbi, Sunaji Jai Chang, Mapeba, Son de Sa. Ta Shansen Chimba Koluji Javula Suba to be Chumbutan Jasun Ramatan. And then do the run of it in Chudden, people in the Sona Shidaro, Shansen Road to Shungage, Chumbuchun, Chudden, people in the Sona the Childress, and Jam of Papa Sonte. Then Samba Shansu, Shansen Chimbata, Shansen Rajuni, and the Shansu Sen San Tavajibares, Samba Shansu Sen San Tavajibares, Shansu Sen Down, she. 최대한 비바 지바레스 제요 말레스 삼바 장주 세 지바레 신 최대한 비바 지바레 차바라 안에 차바 안에 응와불라 차바 제야스 응와부 지게 된 최부터 자수다 저러나 뭐반 그거 쳐버려 샹세로 되게 최부 주중 비바레 대 주중으로다 네 신도 네 제발 신도 체양스 땡지 도수 살로스 샹세 라존 땡 라존 이당 디차네 고토 제비 차용어레스 오트레 노드가 좀 아주데
Okay, so now that completes that first section. Now we move on to the first section dealing with the comparison of the one who is a scholar to someone who is not a scholar. So this first section deals with that. The next section gets into the presence of vow or non-presence. So we begin with a quote, points made at the heap of jewels sutra, and it speaks of the bodhisattva who has gone forth. So here it's speaking of the bodhisattva who has become ordained. Here it says renounce the householder's life. So this is someone who has become ordained, and then it will go on to compare actions done by one who is a bodhisattva and ordained versus not ordained. So it's going to show how the presence of the vow makes the presence of the vow makes the strength of the action greater. So we'll begin just reading this. The Heap of Jewels Sutra speaks of a bodhisattva who has renounced the householder's life, holding a lamp wick coated with a trifling amount of butter in front of a stupa. The merit accumulated from this is then compared to all the living beings in the universe of 3 billion world systems having entered the Mahayana, possessing the kingdom of a universal monarch, and then each making offerings to a stupa of the Buddha with butter lamps whose vessels were the size of an ocean and whose wicks were the size of Mount Meru. It states that even this would not match even 1/100th of the former's merit. This is a case in which the attitude, the spirit of enlightenment, and the recipient, the stupa, are not different. But this is a pronounced difference in the object offered. However, this is clearly a case exemplifying strength in terms of the support of a vow, in parentheses. Following the line of reasoning in this passage, it is evident that regarding cultivation of the path by someone with the support of a vow, someone having a vow, and within having a vow, the support of possessing 1, 2, or 3 vows, the latter will have quicker progress than the former. So those holding the vows, the more will have quicker progress than those not holding the vows. I'm just going to read through and then we'll go back. It is clear as well that when people such as householders practice such things as generosity, there can be a great difference in strengths of roots of virtue produced. The difference comes from whether they act within having a vow, such as a one-day vow, or whether they act without a vow. So here, that's the section on presence of a vow and no presence of a vow, and showing how the presence of a vow makes the, even though the basis of the person is the same, the bodhisattva with bodhicitta, if one has a vow, it makes it more, the action stronger.
가도치 좋아하는 가수 마드드 오드레도 샤선 침박에 네 춤을 자체부 주된 배우다 샤선 라중기 춤 추중 주된 배우잖아 라중 되게 배우듯이 시작다 싶어서 삼바 샤주 센터 최대를 제범에 뭐를 제범 쳤나요? So
here, last week, we were asking about this, and we find that in this section, it's showing how the bodhisattva, who is a householder, and the bodhisattva who is a renunciate, can do exactly the same action. So when I say a renunciate, an ordained. So a bodhisattva who is a householder and a bodhisattva who is ordained can do exactly the same action, but the one who is ordained or possessing a vow has much greater powerful because of the terms of the support, the vow supporting the action.
What the Shansen Chamber the Rajungi and Chumba Pual, the Jaju, Sona Chechungi Cheba Yuezan, the base, the Dumba Yubi Chumba Puat, Dumba Maybe Chumba Puajana, Dumba Yubi Chumba Puat, Sona Chigal Hes, Yobatan, Yobalaya, Chide, Nede, Dumba, Sonde, Nede, Dumba Moyuna, and Chumba the Puba in Sona Chigal.
So if a bodhisattva makes an offering to the stupa. So if one bodhisattva is a householder making an offering, so if bodhisattvas make offering to a stupa, and one bodhisattva is ordained and one bodhisattva is not ordained, they are both bodhisattvas having a mind that aspires to enlightenment, but the ordained holds a vow, so it makes the offering more powerful. And then it says the more vows you have, so the more support there is for this strength. So it says one possessing one vow, 2 vows, 3 vows. So the more vows that one holds, the more strength there is when one engages in actions, because the vows are supporting this behavior. This behavior is supported by the vows.
What the killing dibajon, don't think dibajon, so what there in the Dumba Yoba, Chuba in the Chevre, Dumba member Chuban Chujon race, and the Dumba Yoba Laya, Jiden, Dumba Mumba Yoba, and the Shaju Samba, and the show Dumba Tutin, sentient Tutin, and what Gawachu to do, soon not damage Shaju Sambi, Chuba, Jachabo, near Matamatan Jacho, what the nigga, and so that Dumba. Momuyobayina and then Gawashi Chua. And then what the Guinea to what the Matamana, Chon, what the Ribat Santan Jaguars.
So here we're speaking of the difference between someone who is ordained making an offering and someone who is not ordained making an offering. The one who's ordained creates a greater amount of merit because of the support of the vow. And then it goes on to say that the more vows, the more support there is. So if one has 2 vows, there's more support than 1 and 3 vows, etc. And then it says the difference comes from whether they act within having a vow, such as a one-day vow, or whether they act without a vow. So the one-day vow is an example among the individual liberation vows. So it's just giving an example of a vow that a vow that could support, be a support in this case.
That chimba tabi chimbi jimba tanga tabul chajaba in the chimba tabi jimba tanga la suba. Shebi tseyang nye dra yu dumba chimba ke nye dumba namalen jimba tanga ta nye dumba malan chimbi jimba tanga jena wote chichun yu ares dumba tanga dembi ngane sheba tanga Doma meba sheba ni gaza to chijong shinto selos, chijong chewa shinto selos, what about the
So the strength of the root virtue produced is dependent upon whether there is a vow present or not. So if there is a vow present, then the strength of the root virtue is greater than if there is not a vow present. So this is the point that's being made here. So if one engages in generosity with a vow, it is greater than engaging in generosity without a vow. So now we're at the third category, which deals with the misdeeds of losing a vow, or the support of a lost vow. So that's the next section. So this section literally is dealing with those who have broken. Rinpoche is saying monk vows that are broken. So ordained, those who are ordained that have broken their vows. Ani chipa, drapa dang ani. Okay, so monk or nun.
Chimba jiba injir da chuja gnomba jina chimbi gnomba dombosu rajun domba and chimba le ganye domba yo ganye pami domba yo ne glo pami ane hotin do yo marba nyene domba tuju yo ba de mebal chiba yo.
So in here, when we speak of ethical discipline, we're not only referring to, as Rinpoche said, monks and nuns, but in the individual liberation vows, there are householder vows as well. There is the 24-hour vow, and then also the householder vow for male and female. So there are these vows for householders in the individual liberation vows as well. So this is an exclusive. When we speak of vow holders to the ordained, this could also be householder vows.
차주빈도래 먹이 먹이 메시 주도 바시 메 로자이 바도 데바사발레스 다 데바 르주고는 소지바 마지발레바 나기 나바지 이지 나바손데 먹어 주사된 게 주도 바치 메바 로자이 바도 데바사바이나 데바비 쳔마르바 사발레 글로 먹어 주던 데베 메시게 네 주도 디바사네 로자이 바도 디바사바이나 디바치브로 디바 텔레초와 가르요아르스나 글로 튜틴 체와 글로 튜틴 글로 담을 글로제 안나 글로 도방게 사게 취제 주요로 튜틴 제베 트랜송기 제세제 요네 안에 수리체 장도 다치고는 제세지 오는 대비 안 대비 잡아줄 필요 잘라도 어디 수리체와 그 비제제바인 디바트 책을 해서 제발라 샤지 롱제나 먹어 체 모아서 샤지 롱제바인한테는 먹어대 네 추리체와 시기 디바 먹어 주 루자이 바도 디바 사발레 추치지 다치고는 네 글론 회자베 잘라데 네 제발라 렌지 롱제나 렌지 롱페제바이나 디바 먹어 책을했어 먹어 초와 송바양 땡지 고네 디바토 초와 우사 고 땡지고는 디바치고 차용을 했어 말이야. 땡지고는 땡도 그 주지체와 제와 인상이지로. 초와 what 지주잖아.
Okay. So now we're in the section again on the broken vows. So the Sutra on Overcoming Faulty Ethical Discipline speaks of a monk who does not observe ethical discipline, but who drapes himself in the flag of a sage monk's robe. the non-virtue that such a monk incurs when he enjoys for a single day with a donor, the non-virtue that such a monk incurs when he enjoys for a single day what a donor has given with faith is far greater than the sins a human being possessing the 10 non-virtues would accumulate continuously over 100 years. The Buddha is saying that this is a case of strength of sin from the viewpoint of support. So here, then another example is given of someone who does not observe the ethical discipline but wears robes and then takes offerings and so forth. This sort of non-virtue is the greatest amount of non-virtue, and it would be worse than someone who for 100 years, an entire lifetime, engaged in the 10 non-virtuous activities. So there's 10 non-virtues, the 3 non-virtues of the body, killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, the 4 non-virtues of the speech, lying, harsh words, divisive speech, and gossip, and then the 3 of the mind of covetousness, harmful intent, and wrong views. So if someone engaged in those negativities for 100 years, it would be less negative than someone who is using robes inappropriately and then taking offerings as if he or she was holding the ethical discipline. Okay, Vinti, so drop low. So this is someone who has lost the vows.
What did Lonaji Ronjadua? Lonaji Lejan, Jagun Machimbawata, Jagun Machimbawata, Sheba Juba, 2 inches, Chuchi Yanda, Madumbe, Chuchi Yanda, Madumbe, and Yuko Sawa means she Churichawata, Labala, Labaniga, Sonsosa. Takante, that the Pujano, Lonaji Pujan, Jago Majibata, Seba Juba 2 inch, Jago Majima, Seba Ina, Yajudes.
Lasso.
Shooting Yada Madumbi, that shooting was shooting Yada Madumbi, you could Tamasu Glunt and Hama Jagale, Morgan and Glunt and Gutsuzo, and the Kamal Kala Yomaro, Rosi Langadoro, Sunyu Lance. Tisanta talented to Dana Bendua, Bamata, what to the Glunzo, Sunyu Langadoro, and the Hama what the Tangatu Jagal, Tabata, and Momuchane. And the Sunyu Lang Koma June, and Nanetale, Ganik the Tsubigozo, and the Trabagi, Niebatan, and the Zune, Trabasoki, Claudiate, Sunyu
Nalanda Castle, Sujun
Naneta, Trabashi, Momore, Monsin Land, Kara woman.
Oh,
Then the Ganik the Jalama, Satam, Zune, Kalanaluze, what the Treatise was. Glunto, Sunyu Lan Kalasa. Shooting Chewa to what they Glunto Sunyu Lan, San of the Niakari Dibachivares.
Also, the exegesis of the discipline speaks of both those who have faulty ethical discipline and those who have slackened from their precepts. For those who have faulty ethical discipline or who are not correctly restrained, it is far better to eat iron lumps blazing with flames than to eat the alms of their region. So here, somebody who is does not have ethical discipline, using the offerings that are given to the ordained is extremely negative, and it would be better, it's saying, to eat iron, boiling iron, than to take these things. So it's showing the weight of the negativity. So here, this word alms is used because previously the monks and nuns would go out and beg for food. So they didn't have food at their house or refrigerator in their kitchen. They had to go out and actually beg for alms. And so we still see this tradition in Thailand and in Burma, where monks and nuns go out and beg for their alms. But in Nalanda University, we didn't see this activity because there were so many students. There wasn't the potential possibility for everyone to go out and receive these alms. So therefore, they started the tradition where they would then get offerings from the community and then make it in their own individual kitchens. So they would actually prepare the food at the university, whereas previously it was all begging for food. So this changed in Nalanda. So Chandrakirti was a kitchen worker? Okay, so Chandrakirti was someone who worked in the kitchen, was as a food worker. They have to make a lot of tea, and then so there's a lot of milk to be processed. And then they were short on things. So Chandrakirti actually was able to take a picture of a cow and then milk the picture of the cow and then provide milk for all of the monks at the monastery. So just as a note, Chandrakirti, through mystical powers, was able to milk this picture and then provide milk for the whole entire Nalanda monastery.
So we
find this point that's made in the text about Chandrakirti, where it states milking the picture. So we find that in the Vinaya teachings that there are these four root I forgot what the point is behind it. There are four virtues, four root virtues that are pointed out when we look at them in terms of non-virtues. So we find the killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying to be the four root non-virtues that are pointed out. So then the garshene, the jelason, you know, the okay. So when we look at the greatest amount of virtue, so the greatest amount of ethics, so we're speaking of ethics, it would be engaging in that which is the opposite of the non-virtues, of the four root non-virtues. So the opposite of, so the abandoning, the killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying. So this is the greatest amount of weight is when in terms of sin, or in terms of non-virtuous activity. One of don't be scared. They're here, okay. They're behind us. Lions.
是带去蓝，是带去出。那蓝是带去我就把学，学的蓝是带去冲了是。
Then Yune,
我的冲的嘛个这是。
so he was the lions came alive.
No,
Yeah.
there's two small
Statues.
statues and then jumping out
Yeah.
through the
Right.
like that.
Yeah, so they came alive. So there's a story of in Nalanda University or in Chandrakirti, there was an army coming. So Chandrakirti said, "Don't be scared. Don't worry. Just stay where you are. There's an army coming, but there won't be any problem." So then he, through miraculous powers, then was able to transform these two snow lions that were statues into living beings. So they came alive, and then they jumped. They jumped out when they became alive, and then as a result, they scared off the army. So the army arrived, and they said, "The army's right behind you." And he said, "Don't worry." And then these snow lions came to life and scared them off. Thank you very much. So we have now 4 minutes. We had 5 when Rinpoche said it. We have 4 minutes. If anybody has any questions, we can do that. Anyone have a 4-minute kind of question?
And excuse me, we have the
John.
Oh, Sasha, go good.
가는 그 저와지 당소 그와디야 모노 디바 모노 그래서
Thanks,
제소
Sasha.
어떤 로그래서 디바고 디바지 사사나 손이 거야 진짜 원노야 모노
Sani, nani.
가서 그 저와지 뜻당 말বে
Uh, So Nima Dakpar Moaj.
태용
Okay, so Rinpoche said also, John, in relation to your question before, that every day the Dipa Dangewa,
디바 사사나
Dipa Dangewa,
손이 모노 그티 말বে 제소 어떤 걸 로가지라죠 어떤 모노 디바 피용 시도 제번 좀
Gewa Chipa.
지바
Okay, so wants to go back to a question you asked prior. So every day when we have virtue and non-virtuous actions that we engage in, every day those seeds become greater, stronger. So he was just referring back. Rinpoche said he went and looked up in the text, and it says that each day that passes, these seeds grow, be they virtuous or non-virtuous. So it was an aside. So go ahead. The question.
Thank you.
So when we do the Vajrasattva mantra 21 times, then we're the guy. Day. Okay, so if we do the Vajrasattva mantra 21 times, then this makes it so our misdeeds stay the same level. They don't increase. But now you might have a new question.
Yes, thank you. So I'm actually still going through. I just went through the teachings I missed in August, so that's why I'm on those 4 general characteristics still. But that's related to the characteristic of certainty of karma, and how Rinpoche explained that the reasoning we can use to know that there's the certainty of virtue producing happiness and non-virtue producing suffering is because of the variety of results that we see.
Okay.
There must be a variety of causes. Mm-hmm. So my question is, how can we be certain that results are not produced just from the conditions coming together for something to happen, say someone getting in a car accident, the condition coming together of their losing mindfulness, swerving off the road and crashing into something, the tree being there, the car being, able to move. Why must there be a non-virtue present for a non-virtuous seed present for that result to occur?
Why? Other than that it's suffering?
Yeah, and the suffering would be, why not the suffering caused by the neurons firing that produce suffering.
Well, what I'm asking is you're saying why does the non-virtue have to be present? And I'm asking, even with knowing that the sign of suffering is present, are you saying that why are those connected? Like, why is that suffering connected to the non-virtue? Is that? I just want to ask it really clearly so we can get the answer really clear.
I think you're saying it correct. What I mean is so why? So we know that there must be causes for a result. So a suffering of getting in a car accident, and then how there are other causes going on. There are inner neurological causes in the body that produce suffering, for instance. So, why also, right, must there be
so then those
connected also? Why do we have to bring in the action as a cause? Why not just the crash, the blood spilling, and the pain from the body, and so forth?
I don't know if I'm clear on the question. Rinpoche said we're out of time, but I'm going to try. The Rinpoche ngama the chu ledre sonchana the jepo mambo yure den sun san lay the mambo yure the ngama chu sonchana the trisa. Then kongi triwa the drawa gar the chichena dutsu yomara the drawa garishene the ngatsa mota duntu the ju mota duntu I ju migewa. Then garishene drawa yure garishene the kongi triwa garishene the migewa yingu garishene the mota duntuna garishene migewa yingu.
Mago duntuna mago yimi chabaka yijima chawla.
So we can't say that even if it is a car crash, it is caused by non-virtue. So we can't say that that's pervasive. So there could even be virtue that causes an accident. So we're out of time. So, concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the three times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tu Jiram Chegutsi Shapi Denranang, Lamrim